Thanks so much for joining me today. This is Ben from Catalyst, and today I'm joined by Amelia Danzica. She's an incredibly talented and prolific customer success expert, consultant, advisor, leader, speaker, you name it. She's helped countless large and startup tech companies build teams, create processes, grow their revenue, drive impact for customers. She's also helped many of those companies implement CS platforms, which is the topic of our conversation today. And I wanted to get Amelia specifically on this topic because originally I was going to do it myself and realized that would sort of be like being like asking a politician who to vote for. So I wanted to get a third party who is an expert in all things CS platform. So Amelia, thanks so much for joining.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, the first thing I want to start off with, because it's so much fun to talk about, are mistakes. So having seen all shapes and sizes of companies implement different CS platforms, what is the biggest mistake that you've seen companies make when buying or selecting a CS platform?
The biggest mistake I see clients make is rushing into the process without having a process and rushing into selecting a platform. So not really understanding what's the end goal of using a platform. If you can start from the end goal and work backwards and have a plan that is realistic, you will be so much farther ahead and be able to leverage the platform in a way that enables your team and gives you better management insights. So I would say start with the process. Why do you want a platform at the end goal, and then work your way backwards? If more companies did that, they would be so much more successful with their customer success platform.
Makes a lot of sense. So you've seen a lot of companies sort of get a CS platform for the sake of getting a CS platform rather than saying, we need to scale these processes or something like that, and we need a system to do that.
Exactly. And the issue is if you don't know what your process is, then the onboarding can be very painful because you're suddenly being forced to create processes on the fly. They're not well thought out, they're rushed. Then you blame the platform because you weren't prepared and you're upset because it's taking so long. The other thing is maybe your data is not clean. Why are you putting dirty data in a platform that will give you insights that may potentially lead your CSMs and your clients down the wrong path? So you really, when I went and got my PMP certification, the number one takeaway I remember is 80% of success is in the planning, 20% is in execution. So you really need to plan for that customer success platform, and then the execution will be so much more seamless.
That makes a lot of sense. To play devil's advocate for one moment, because I've seen a few leaders writing about this. What do you think about the idea that if you're early stage in a company, a CS platform who's been in the space, has a team of experts on CS, they're constantly putting out helpful resources, not just us, but any CS platform is an expert in their field and may be able to advise you on what your processes should be because they've seen all their customers go through that and they can lend their expertise and maybe help you implement those processes faster. Curious whether you would agree with that, disagree with that, or if it's just one of those things where it's good, but it doesn't justify going too fast.
Yeah, so I have two thoughts on that. One, creating process doesn't need to be 100-page playbook. Those are the playbooks that you put on the shelf and never touch, and you spend a lot of money on. So I'm not an advocate of that. But what I am an advocate of is understanding the customer's journey and what are the key touch points for growth or churn. If you can at least put that process in place and gain alignment with your sales team and your customer success managers and your customers, then you can implement a platform in a way that will enable your customers. The one challenge, the one caveat is I have felt that companies put too much pressure on the CSM of a customer success platform to constantly be advising them. And that's not what it's about. Customer success is not free, and you don't have unlimited CSM time. So you need to come to the table knowing what you want and what is the end goal. then the CSM will be able to advise you better, and you're not blaming the platform for maybe something not going the way you were expecting.
I think that's a great point. It's something we strive to do, is just always make sure that we're meeting the customers where they are and we're not forcing them to adapt to our processes or our platform. We want our platform to adapt to what the customer is doing already or what the customer wants to do. So I think that's a great point. So you've spoken a little bit about this, but in terms of the right time to buy a platform, when you should be thinking about it, you mentioned knowing your goals is really important. Know what you want to accomplish with it. Your data should be clean or clean enough to some degree to avoid the garbage in, garbage out situation. Is there anything, are there any other kind of markers that you would say are important to bear in mind potentially around team size or processes or other systems or needs, that would be a marker that, okay, we need to graduate from Google Sheets to a platform, or from Salesforce to a platform or something like that?
Right, right. I can't imagine successfully managing a customer success team with Google Sheets. I've worked with the client with that, and every Friday I wanted to cry trying to understand what happened that week with customers. So I
Yeah.
never recommend that. The sooner you can justify the ROI of a customer success platform to your CFO, the sooner you'll be ahead in proactive management, customer insights, and customer call to action. What
Mhm.
does the CSM do for the client? So I don't think a certain number of CSMs is the right answer. I think it's how soon are you able to convince your leadership that this will enable your team to scale faster, and that you know your processes that you want to implement and work with in this platform.
Makes a lot of sense. And then when making those decisions, what are some key factors? I mean, I know there's probably a million different features and bells and whistles that you can talk about or that people will list out, but in your mind, what are some key factors to consider when selecting a CS platform?
So one, make sure that the use cases you're seeking to achieve can actually be done
Mhm.
within that platform. I think that's really important. Look at the different reporting requirements that you need as a leader to be successful. So you're not exporting the data and once again in Excel, getting that data to your
Yeah.
executive team. And then usability. You want to make sure that your customer success managers are actually going to use the platform and not feel like it's a task management
Yeah.
system that they have to do and they dread, but rather that it's one that you can say, yes, this is my main lead in understanding how my customers are using our product
Mhm.
and how I can better enable them. I think those are some of the elements that you need to talk about. Of course, integrations. I think integrations are really, really important. There, there's so many products out there. If they're not all working together, it's just going to make more overhead for your team and actually make them less efficient. So you really want to address those.
I think, yeah, that's a great point on the integrations and again the data especially, right? You never want to be buying a platform and then end up back in Google Sheets where you started. That would be a nightmare. And you bring up a great point, which is adoption by CSMs, because it's not, if software is not effectively adopted, it's effectively useless. So let's dive a little further into that. Can you speculate on some of the reasons why CSMs don't adopt these platforms, and some ways that you've seen companies successfully drive adoption?
Yeah, so I would start with the customer journey and where does the CSM insert themselves? What are their actions
Mhm.
that help the customer be successful? And where do they need help from something like a CS platform in terms of triggers for usage, for example, or lack of usage?
Mhm.
I think those are just some of the really important pieces. The others is having CSMs from different segments be part of the selection process
Mhm.
and building the requirements or at least signing off on the use cases. If they don't feel like they were part of the decision, there might be some resistance, and that, especially if they're used to using another platform.
Right.
So at the end of the day, we are humans and we always want to know what's in it for me.
Hmm.
And so being able to take them through that journey and explain, this is how this platform is going to help you be better at your job, save time, and be able to help customers be successful, get those renewals in, the expansion opportunities in. That is what will help these customer success managers adopt the platform. If it's just something that's announced
Yeah.
and you're forced to go through training, especially on something like Zoom, and your camera's not on, they're probably looking at another screen, looking at the emails coming in,
Yeah.
maybe social media. So start with what's in it for me. How is it going to help me as a customer success manager be successful?
And on the training side too, you bring up a great point, which is, I mean, even now it's probably harder than ever to get your team together and trained and motivated to do so. So having something with a high degree of usability or ease of onboarding for sure is probably a big factor for driving that adoption.
Yeah, when I was implementing a platform at a company, we went through the training with the CSM, and I didn't find it helpful at all. I actually only once the CSMs, we created like a mini playbook of these are the 5 key things you should be doing every single morning,
Mhm.
5 key things you're doing throughout the day to be successful. And we actually went through the exercise together where we had that playbook and we were all doing it and figuring out where we're getting stuck, why isn't this making sense, or how can we do this better? Then that's when the real adoption occurred. It's not someone walking you through a PowerPoint or whizzing through the platform because they've been through it 1,000 times.
Right.
It's through actual usage where the
Yeah.
true adoption begins.
So we've just started talking about this, but let's dig a little further into the buying process. So you mentioned, we talked about how CSMs should be part of that process. Basically, anybody who's going to end up being a user of the platform should be some
Mhm.
part of the process. At what point in the journey should different people get involved, and to what degree should like everyone on the CS team be on every demo? Is there a different like what processes have you seen work when it comes to making a group decision?
Yeah, so obviously start with the budget. The
Mhm.
person who owns that, whether it's your CFO or the VP, they need to be part of the initial discussions. I think that's really important. And then the use cases, the CSMs, if they probably have their hands full, you should be building them, whoever is doing your CS ops. Often at startups, it's the VP who's building out the use cases. So once you have those, just getting that sign off, that can be in a Google sheet where everyone has to initial that they've been through it. I think that helps them get excited or inquisitive about what's coming, what's in it for me. And then, no, of course, they don't have to be on all the calls, but I do think they need to at least understand how are they going to use the platform, and if they have an opportunity to be testing it out, giving feedback. Because often as a leader, you're high up there, you're not managing the customers day in and day out. You might be on more escalation calls. They're the ones who are day in and day out using it. They'll be able to give you key insights on how they'll use that platform.
Mhm.
That's where you should be getting their expertise. Having them in there, I think, is really important. And then as soon as you start implementing, I would say have a task force. Have a task force that it's not just CS ops who's making all the decisions, but on a weekly cadence where you're discussing, hey, here's where the direction we're going, here's where we're running behind, here's where we could use your input. I think that will be highly valuable in the success of a selection and implementation.
Last question, well, a couple more questions I wanted to throw your way that I've also heard out in the CS ether. Using Salesforce for customer success. What are your thoughts?
I think Salesforce or any CRM can get you through for a little bit. But again, if you don't have someone who can be on the back end building what you need to make it do, you're actually going to be wasting more time of your engineers' time, your sales ops time, your leadership's time. And if you put that in a bucket of hours wasted, human hours wasted, and you tie that to find a financial number, you'll actually see that a CS platform can be far less expensive to invest in and far more effective. Platforms, you can see what's happening in them in CS platforms from a sales perspective. You can be speaking the same language. It can live on top of your CRM or separately.
Mhm.
And those kind of, if you take a step back and say, why are you not wanting to invest in a CS platform? Why do you think you can do it yourself within your CRM? And how much is it holding your team back versus moving ahead? Then you'll be able to come up with your own answer. Um, I've seen very few companies well, I don't know if I've ever seen a company tell me that they can be proactive with triggers in Salesforce the way that you can be proactive with the customer success platform. So I would challenge most people on that. Maybe I've seen one or two. There's an exception to
I
everything.
mean, but even if you're right, there's an exception to every rule, but if they do have that something in Salesforce, then it probably required a considerable amount of custom Salesforce engineering hours and time to build all of that out instead of having it baked into a existing functionality in another platform. So I think, yeah, it's a good point. And I think at the end of the day, whether it's Salesforce or Google Sheets or a pen and paper, however you're managing customers, it just comes down to, what's the time I'm spending on this, the resources I'm putting on this, and what's the potential ROI. And I think just doing that calculation takes time in and of itself, which I've also seen, be difficult to do, but it's something, like you said, it's excellent to do early on. It's always smarter once you can, as soon as you can, it'll just let you level up.
I think the number one differentiator of a customer success platform versus a CRM is you can be proactive. You can have those call outs as to, I show up in the morning at 8 a.m. I'm a CSM. I have 1,000 things I have to do today. I'm completely overwhelmed. To be able to go into a platform and see by segment who I have to touch first and why, so I can have meaningful conversations with my clients, is invaluable. And that is very hard to achieve with just a CRM.
Definitely. Definitely makes a lot of sense. Any final comments or things you think that people should be aware of when it comes to finding or evaluating a customer success platform?
I would say do your due diligence. Don't rush the decision. You'll probably have buyer's remorse. And I always say go and get references,
Mhm.
talk to people, just like you do when you're hiring someone.
Mhm.
Hopefully you're getting references. I think that's really important. And if you're able to test out a platform or see how it works from maybe someone else who's using it, however you can, make sure you do your due diligence before you make that commitment. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amelia. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I think this is going to be really valuable for a lot of folks. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, Ben.